Good morning on this cool yet sunny, beautiful, what have we got? 5th of January 2025. Yesterday I got my PSA test back. I'll try to see if I can make this video short, at least a lot shorter than the last one. And for those of you that can't be bothered listening to a long video, let me just give the results. 103.2, so we are not below 100 as I've hoped for. But I did also get the full blood package made yesterday, no, the day before yesterday. That was Friday. Today's Sunday. And apart from my PSA, I also had all the liver test and the urine tested and everything, and it came back with some bad information. But 103.2, so my PSA has been dropping a little bit. It is the second time in a row that we have it dropped, so I'm very positive. And it seems, if you could make any conclusion based on that, which is very difficult, we can't make any statistic anyway, then the trajectory is going not just in the right direction, it is accelerated. And let's just keep that acceleration. And I'll get back to a little later in this video what I will do to see that if I can accelerate the PSA drop. But let's get back to the blood test, because I had every 6 months I'll make a blood test, a full package, just to follow up on things. Like a lot of people, they emphasize you cannot just use the PSA to measure whether it's going in the right direction or not. And they're right. Obviously, you need to look at other things than that. And so I got this blood test coming back, and for the first time I saw things that really had me worried a bit. Not overly worried, because first off, I'm kind of on that train where I won't say I don't care, but I would say as long as I'm doing my best, I'm not worried, because then things are just going the way that things are going, and I can't do anything else about it as long as I do my best. But I had blood and I had protein in my urine, which I'm not supposed to have. And I was just looking back at my papers from earlier, because I thought maybe this is something that I missed out on when I did my urine test initially back in March 2023. But sure enough, there was nothing there. So it's not supposed to be there. The rest of all my numbers, they were absolutely spot on. And being a carnivore, I can say to have your HDL and LDL being spot on when it's supposed to be, I'm happy about that. And I don't think my doctor was particularly impressed about it. Well, he was impressed, but obviously it does not align with what he's been taught, that I'm sitting there saying I'm only eating beef and I'm only eating eggs, and he says, oh, maybe you should cut back on the beef. So no, because if I'm cutting back on my beef, I'll be losing more weight than I am, and right now I'm on just ideal weight. But that's a different story. So my bilirubin numbers, though, they were wrong. They're supposed to be below 1.2, but what was at 3.4. And as far as I can see, they've had kind of an increase in the whole period of doing these tests here, which is not good. But my doctor, he pulled out this calculator and did some calculations, of which I have no idea was. And he said, based on all the numbers that I have, the numbers that are not okay or very much not okay and okay, he said that the picture was that I was not hydrating properly, and that's why you see blood and protein in my urines, and that was based on the fact that my bilirubin number was totally off, but the blood numbers and the protein numbers were in the insignificant range. The protein was 1+, and he said if it is 2+, it becomes significant. I did manage to do a little bit of research before I got to the consultation with the doctor, and I found out that the blood numbers has to be 3 or 5, can't remember, but mine was 0 to 1, both the white and the red blood count. So they were so-called insignificant. But then I also read that this is kidney related, and what can cause kidney related issues, and that was why I was a bit worried, because obviously it could be because cancer had spread, metastasized to the kidneys. But one other reason could be the fact that running can impact it. And then I started rewinding, because they also mentioned that it could cause a drop in your blood pressure. And when I rewinded and I took a look at when did my blood pressure normalize into, all of a sudden, just out of the blue sky, to the normal range, it happened 2 or 3 days after I had a very, very hard run with my son on Pattaya Beach. We were competing to see which one of us could run the 2.7 kilometers, as the beach is long. the fastest, and we were not allowed to run where the sand has consolidated itself because of the water coming up. We were to run only in the soft sand. That was a hard run because my competitive gene just makes me running where I shouldn't be doing it. And I fell over right the same moment I crossed the 2.7K, and I fell right over on my right side, and that kind of impacted my kidney. It's very, very likely it is, because it was very shortly after that my blood pressure dropped out of the sky. It was so shortly after that I realized that I had blood. So that was a positive thing to figure out, that we're probably just talking about a sport injury and we are talking about hydration, and those two things just walks hand in hand for me, because in these cold days, so-called cold days, I just don't get enough to drink. I can maybe have a liter of liquid a full day. And because I've got a big run coming up the end of January, I've been pushing myself hard to see if I can get my VO2 max up to 48. So everything adds up to the fact that the doctor is right. I just need to hydrate better. So that's what we're going to do. But what have I done so far? Well, the trajectory is going down from 109 to 108, and then from 108 to 103 in PSA, which is very, very, very high numbers if you ask everybody else. But we're looking at the pattern here, and the pattern is going down. In those 2 months that I've seen a drop, I have been on a fairly strict regimen on CD, and I think that's what's starting to kick in. So what I will do to see if I can kick it in further is I will increase my CD irrigation by not just doing the mornings, which I've been doing so far. On a blue moon, I've been doing evening as well, but in regular terms, I've only been doing the mornings. Now I'll be doing both morning and evenings. So that's one thing that's going to increase it. I just 2 days ago increased my vitamin D3 K2 from 5,000 IU a day, and now I'll be doing 20,000 IU a day. I would love to experiment to go to 50,000, because it's not harmful to you to go up. It's just basically sunlight. But I think I'll just increase the natural IU, but just improving my morning ritual by sitting here and enjoying the morning sun for an hour or so. So that's going to be increased to 20,000, and we got the CD irrigation twice a day, and then I'll be starting to do RSO again. But the reason why I have stopped RSO is because I realized that I've made my RSO too pure. The RSO is made very good for oral consumption, recreational, in order to get your THC high, but for medical purposes I have compromised it a bit too much. It is a bit technical, but let me just mention it for the sake of the fact that you might be sitting and doing some RSO production yourself. The terpenes, they start degrading at 30 degrees Celsius. The terpenes are some of the very important ingredients in the healing process, as far as I understand. It's just one of many ingredients, so we get the entourage effects. But you want all of the ingredients, be that the CBD, the THC, and the terpenes, and the flavonoids, and everything to be at its best in order to get the best entourage effect, obviously. And so the terpenes start degrading at 30 degrees. This is a bit technical, so forgive me. But they do not disappear at 30 degrees, because the boiling point of THC terpenes is from 110, 120, 130, and up to 217 degrees, depending on what terpenes it is. But they start to degrade in quality at 30 degrees Celsius. And when I was doing ethanol extraction of my cannabinoids, I was doing it with the ethanol, obviously, and I was doing 100 grams of marijuana at a time. And in order to push as much as all the goodies I could out of the buds, then I used as much alcohol as I could do in one batch. In one batch, I could do 4 liters. So I was pouring 4 liters of ice cold alcohol right through it, which is the right way to do it, but 4 liters. And the output is only about 20 grams. That is a ratio that is way beyond what is actually rational if you want to maintain the terpenes, because the boiling point for alcohol is at 78 degrees. That means Celsius. That means when I'm extracting my ethanol from my cannabinoids, and I'm spending a full hour doing it because I've got 4 liters, then I'm exposing the terpenes to 78 degrees Celsius for a full hour. There is a huge degradation of the qualities of the terpenes in that process, and probably some of the other properties in that cocktail. So that's one thing that is a problem. The second is then I'm decarboxylating it all at 105 degrees for another half an hour. It all depends. I do that, but as a final step in the process. And when I'm doing that, well, I'm again exposing all the cannabinoids and the terpenes for a much higher temperature that they would like to be at without being degraded, but that's in order to activate the THC. And when I'm doing that, I'm activating all of it. Actually, I'm activating the THCA. It becomes THC, just to be technically correct. So what I'm looking at now to get into, if I can figure out how to make that work financially, because I can't sell anything of what I'm doing, it's all for my own production, and I need quite a lot of gear to do it. That is to do a hydrocarbon extraction, and hydrocarbon extraction is done by using butane. Butane has a boiling point at 0 degrees Celsius, which means I would at no point and in the extraction process have my buds exposed to anything that have the terpenes degrading. Then you just in ambient temperature, whatever that might be, can have the butane evaporate to the point that you can have put it in a pressure chamber, and then you'll be purging the rest of the butane. And again, everything is happening at a temperature that is lower than 25 degrees. So at no point do you have any degrading of the product. But from that point on, you have to throw it into a centrifuge, and then you have to separate the THCA from the terpenes so that you can decarboxylate the THCA and get your THC without hurting the terpenes, and then you can just mix those two together again. And here's the thing, by doing that, I can separate the THCA into 2 portions and then just decarboxylate the THCA half of it and mix the half of it that has not been decarboxylated with the half that has been decarboxylated with the terpenes that has not been exposed to any extra heat. And now I've got a cocktail that is absolutely as pristine, clean and potent as it gets. And my plan is to take all the RSO that I have now and then just mix in this cocktail in a certain ratio so that I'm not wasting what I have, because what I have already contains a lot of good properties. It's just not optimum. It's just too clean. And then hopefully I will see result with that. But as you can understand, it is a complicated, fascinating, very interesting process, but also a process that requires equipment. And I just don't have that equipment. So anyway, I have no idea how long this video is, and it become a little bit technical, but just to summarize, my PSA has dropped, and I think it is the CD irrigation, which I've only done every morning, that has finally kicked in. So I am very, very happy and optimistic. I'll be changing the protocols a little bit, so I'll be doing irrigation every evening as well, just to up the antes on that one, double it, because I have faith in it. And I will also be quadrupling my intake of vitamin D3K2, and I will be adding 500 milligrams of RSO, and hopefully within the foreseeable future an improved version of the RSO. So yes, I think that was all for now. Blood and protein in the urine was probably just a sport injury, and me being too ambitious in terms of the result for the big run coming up in the end of the month, and the lack of hydration. And lack of hydration, if all my friends know that, I'm just too bad at it. So I've got to get about 4 or 6 bottles out of my table, and then I'll just have to focus on having those 600 milliliter bottles drunk before I go to bed every night, and hopefully before 6 o'clock, so I don't have to run to the toilet 5, 6, 7 times to get rid of it again. Until next time, stay happy and healthy.